The hardest thing I had to learn, setting. I'm Karin with Right Now Editing, where we turn good manuscripts into great books.
And I'm Peg Thomas, multi-award winning author and editor, and we are two editors for 5 minutes.
And this week, we are going to continue to talk about some of the hardest, the traits, the writing styles that were the hardest for Peg and I to learn we are still learning as we write fiction. Last week, we talked about one of hers, which was learning the fiction language. This week, we're going to talk about one of the things that was the hardest for me to learn, which is setting. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I write contemporary. So my setting is, it's contemporary. You don't have to go into a lot of detail, unlike Peg, who's going to be describing lots of open space and no electricity. I'm using a contemporary setting, but I do like to take advantage of where I live. And my first published manuscript was set at a lighthouse. That book was almost not published because my agent kept coming back to me saying, "You're not taking advantage of the setting." And I didn't understand what he was talking about. You've got to use the setting more. I'm like, what do you mean? So he was describing things. There is a difference between just describing what a room looks like and letting it become part of the story. Now, Peg, you write historicals. So setting's very important for you to create the atmosphere because you've got to pull us back in time. So what are some of your tips for really making the setting come alive for your readers?
For me, a lot of it is using the sights and the smells, the sounds, things that are different from today. Somebody might drop something on a hard-packed dirt floor of a cabin in the woods, right? They didn't always have board floors, so that's something that would be a little bit jarring maybe to the reader, but really would set them back into that time. Or they're cooking at a hearth, and they're smelling the ashes from the wood smoke as well as whatever they're cooking. Adding things in that are missing from today's settings really helps put them back in that time. How about you?
Well, so this, like I said, was a struggle for me. So how do you make the setting more than just description? One of the reasons it was a struggle for me is because I don't like overly descriptive books. I don't want to know every single picture looks like on the wall. It stops the story for me. I'd rather stay in the story. So there have been two things that have really helped. The first one is this book, A Writer's Guide to Active Setting. And I believe this is a Writer's Digest book. How to make the setting really come alive. This book helped tremendously, but really after reading this, what I really focused on is not just me describing the book or describing the setting, but how does your character experience it? So instead of just describing what it looked like, which is the mistake that I was making, like Peg said, she tries to tap into anything that smells or sounds different. So think of how your character experiences the room. I love the blue color of my room. I love that beautiful colored painting back there. My husband is going to have a completely different perspective on this room. So when you describe it, make sure that you are taking that character's personality into account. That's what makes the setting come alive. Then it's not just a list of the walls were blue, the carpet was stained, their dog was on the bed. You're giving it emotion, you're giving it feeling. The other thing that I really liked, which I read more recently. Oh, go ahead.
Staying much deeper in the point of view, which is important.
Yes, because then you can help the reader know, does the character like the room?
When you do that, you are much deeper in your character's point of view.
Absolutely. And you don't have to say then she liked the room. You can tell that the character liked the room because of the way that you're describing it, the way you're showing it. And I believe it's in Solstein's book, Stein on Writing. He talks about using the envelope method when you describe something, whether it's characters or your setting. You just use enough words to create an envelope. Just describe maybe the color, size, and how it feels. And then you let the reader fill that envelope with the rest of the details. And the reason that's important is because then you can give a few details. And again, you convey your point of view characters' feelings about what they're seeing and what they're smelling. But then instead of describing a room that you personally think is beautiful, but what if your reader doesn't like it? What if you describe a beautiful brown room and your reader hates brown? Well, then they're not going to think it's a beautiful room. So you don't want to say, well, this is what beautiful is. Just give them enough description from your point of view characters' experience of the setting, and then let them fill in the details. Any last words, Peg?
You can use a lot of you can really help define your character by doing this well, by the words that you use. If you're talking about a smell and they're talking about an aroma versus an odor, okay, that's really telling you a lot about your character and what they like and what they dislike. So when you're involving the setting, you always want to, like Karin said, present it from the point of view characters point of view, which should make perfect sense but sometimes gets lost, and use it to help the reader understand the character and what they think. Is it a beautiful blue ocean, or is it a tossing tempest death trap? It depend You will know what your point of view character is thinking, and you will clue the reader in more in depth to your character while you're explaining the setting.
That's all we've got for this week. Check back again next week and we'll talk about some of the other struggles that we've had. Until then, I'm Karen Beery.
And I'm Peg Thomas, and we'll see you next time.